I'm a huge fan of Blackmagic 2. I'm genuinely so passionate about this game and what it strives to be, but there are some pretty glaring flaws in it that I just can't ignore anymore. So, to try to get my point across, I think I'm going to divide this video into 4 sections. Firstly, let's talk about Blackmagic 2's biggest flaw, the lack of updates. There's a bunch of factors that contribute to this, such as Justin or Huge Nazo leaving the team, but with the amount of people still on the dev team, there really isn't much of an excuse you could make as to why bm2 can't get one singular update, even if it's small, out a month. To add on to this, we just blazed through both Halloween and Christmas without so much as a glimpse of seasonal maps. Like, don't get me wrong, there's some really awesome stuff that's being worked on at this moment, but I don't understand why bm2 has a history of hoarding changes until one massive update, instead of dropping bits and pieces of it over a period of time. Again, don't get me wrong, hoarding updates isn't bad. It works for more popular games in Roblox that have already amassed a huge following, but when it comes to bm2, it's just not working out, man. It's to a point where players will experience the update, they'll be happy, yay, update, bm2 got updated, oh my god, no way. And the player count will spike. 3 months ago, when Secure was released, the game spiked to 1,000 players. But because of Blackmagic 2's history of being so terrible with updates, people just stopped playing. They already expect an update in the next 2 years, because that's just how bm2 has handled it. So now, 3 months after that 1,000 player spike, we're back down to 40 players. 40! Is this not a problem? It's just, why play a game frequently if the content will get old at some point and you'll have to wait another year for it to come? One might say, well, the game is only a passion project and there's not many devs. You'd be 100% correct. This isn't too great of an excuse, however, as both fighting modeler Soda and Blox card scripter Flatflyer have given me insight about their respective games. Blox Cards only has 3 scripters on their teams compared to bm2's 4. Fighting, on the other hand, only has 1 singular scripter. Not only that, but the 2 of them also confirm that their games are nothing but passion projects. If this truly is the case, then the lack of bm2 updates could potentially be contributed to a lack of passion from the bm2 devs, which honestly wouldn't be surprising considering how desperate the community is for leaks or updates. Comparatively though, Fighting is a game similar to bm2 in the sense that it's relatively small and immensely underrated. One thing, however, that Fighting does better that amounts to a higher player count is the amount of patches and minor updates it's received. Although it's been about a month since a patch update, you can see Fighting has received a new patch nearly every day, even if it was just adjusting one minor thing. That was an old recording. The Fighting devs took 1 month off of patches to tease a new character named Scythe. If you haven't seen that trailer, please go and watch it because it's genuinely so impressive for a Roblox game. Back to my point though, I've seen so many players complain about Karai or Citadel in the BMC, and yet nothing is pushed out to address these concerns. While I'm not remotely active whatsoever in the Fighting Discord, from what's listed in the patch notes, it seems as though the devs care so much more about community feedback. Community feedback actually takes me to my next point regarding the involvement of the community. But first, I'd like to take a second to make it very clear that the developers are people too. They have lives outside of the game, and sometimes personal problems arise that prevent them from working on the game. While the lack of updates and transparency in the community is understandably frustrating, these negative feelings may decrease the motivation that the devs have for the game. It's a weird cycle, honestly, where the devs ought to be treated in a way that makes them want to work on the game, but at the same time, without leaks or updates, the community grows tired and frustrated. Again, please do not harass the devs, much less anyone for that matter. And although I won't say exactly what, it is important to know that some things are already finished and more experimental changes could be published to receive community feedback, but they're mostly being held back until everything is ready and prepared for this update. Anyways, now that bit's over, time to get back to being angry at the game. The bm2 Discord has a feedback channel, but I don't think I've seen a moment in time where that channel genuinely saw a purpose. Yes, it's intended for the community to give feedback on the game, but what good is that feedback if it seems as though the developers do not care? You could even go as far as to say that the feedback channel was the early version of the "how's the development going" thread. Not to mention, the game is in its worst state in terms of balancing. You've got classes like Sakare and Citadel ruining the game with their insane tools, and nothing is being done to address them. Sure, the balance patch will surely fix things, but you'll just have to wait another 5 months because we just love hoarding updates. Again, or how about this bug of cries before soft-locking
Blocks
the player?
Cards is an incredible game, and if you know me, you've definitely heard me talk about this game.
A community of players who are this
on a daily basis,
and play the
testers
game
and devs alike
should
in
not
the
be taken for granted
will
whatsoever.
ask the community
the
for
game has
feedback
so
regarding
much
a card
potential,
and how it interacts with
but at
other
what point
things
do
within
these
the game.
updates become too
Oftentimes,
far and
these
few
votes
between,
actually incur
too
changes
little
within the game
and too
itself
late?
instead of leaving it up to speculation and discussion. Although Blocks Cards has slowed down its rate at which it pushes out patches, they're still able to update the game numerous times before anything is even leaked in bm2. Speaking of leaks, there's constant teasers of new card arts and future planned cards. Despite being a more grindy game than bm2, Blocks Cards is still able to pull off nearly 3 times the amount of concurrent and recurring players every day because they just continue to keep the hype up. Going back to bm2 though, the leaks channel is entirely misused. I'm seeing leaks in threads or other discussions without even being mentioned in the leaks channel. I hate to be the guy that says, "You must not post memes in general chat," but we have a leaks channel for the convenience of everyone. It helps spread the hype and hint at what's to come. It's gotten to a point where we've got a thread specifically dedicated to hunting down leaks posted in other channels. Getting on to my next point, difficulty plays into the popularity of these 3 games as well. While fighting is the simplest, with each character having 3 abilities and 1 finisher, and Blocks Cards being the most difficult, forcing the player to make do with whatever cards they have in their hand, this places bm2 right in the middle. bm2 isn't terribly difficult to learn. bm2 isn't terribly difficult to learn so long as you give yourself enough time to learn the mechanics and training. But that being said, it would seem like bm2 isn't the hardest thing to love. That's just not the case. With fighting, you can do great with matches, even if you're new, so long as you have the right team. In Blocks Cards, there's NPCs of varying difficulties. In Blocks Cards, there's NPCs of varying difficulty. In addition to challenging whoever you want to challenge. Not only that, but they recently added 2v2 mode, which allows you and a teammate to fight other teams or fight someone on their own. bm2 on the other hand has such an incredible learning curve from someone who just started to the average bm2 player nowadays. Due to bm2's low player count, most players already have past experience with the game, making it incredibly difficult for newer players to actually enjoy the game. This last section is about bugs and glitches. Anyone who has at least 30 minutes in bm2 has experienced a handful of bugs. Like, I'm not trying to undermine the amount of work put into the game, but I feel like there's no sense of urgency when it comes to patching glitches or squashing bugs, unless they're genuinely game-breaking. For example, this bug of hitting Assailant during their SP5 startup will cause the active frames to linger for too long. This bug has been in the game for years and still hasn't been patched, or this new tech, if that's what you want to call it, with the flex and taunt that allows you to instantly break block with Sakare if your opponent is caught in your SP5. I'd consider this pretty attention grabbing, especially if we want to balance the game and even the playing. Field, but I guess we just have to wait another 2 years to see this addressed, won't we? All in all, I love Black Magic 2, I really do, but I'm so worried that this game's All in all, I love Blackmagic 2, I really do, but I'm so worried about this game's player base and inability to attract new players and retain a high following. This game is barely hanging on by a thread because some people in the community are that devoted to the game. To those of you who still play, I just have a couple questions. When is enough enough? How long are you willing to wait for one singular update? And when does this all become too little, too late?